Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to the Rookie Wifey Wednesday live show. I'm your girl, Lissette Carter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you caught it yesterday, I actually launched a small group in Central Mass that we're doing beta online for a little bit, kind of hardcore. So if you are a Christian and you're kind of looking for something a little bit more high beta, high hardcore, that's just meat that you're ready to move on to build your faith, go back and watch that on YouTube. It is called Renew. It's with Yaitari Rodriguez. But for those of you that tuned in to that, thank you for sharing. Thank you for commenting. It was a really, really good experience. So tonight we are going to be covering on the live show, your husband is not the source of your joy. And for those of you that don't know me, hi Jackie. My name is Lissette Carter. I am the author of Rookie Mommy and Rookie Wifey, and I am a mindset coach. I teach women how to gain victory over their thoughts so that they can gain victory in every area of their lives, and really just to spread the gospel of Jesus, because what else are we on earth for? You know what I mean? I mean, that's the purpose at the end of the day. That's the promise. So I really want to empower, thank you. I really want to empower women and help them equip them properly for the next phase in their life. There are a lot of women out there that are broken and confused and don't really know which way to go sometimes. And it's my passion in my life to help women overcome that. Married women, women that have kids, stay-at-home moms, entrepreneurs, business owners, businesses, whatever, new Christians, whatever. So thank you guys for joining me. I don't think that, hi Doreen. I don't think that I thank you guys enough for tuning in every single week and just catching the lives and just participating and sharing. I mean, so much love. So I really appreciate you. Sometimes I get tired and I'm like, I don't really know if I want to go on that thing tonight. But I do it because I'm consistent. I'm good to my word. And I know that there are women out there that really need to hear, that really need some encouragement. So without further ado, your husband is not the source of your joy. He is not. And let me tell you, a lot of women find that out the hard way, because it seems like for women, it is like a lifelong journey to find a good man that is a contender for us to marry. I mean, that's just really what it is. I mean, you trying to have relationships that when you're a teenager, when you're a young adult, they don't work out, you have heartbreak, you think they're the one. It's kind of like this never-ending journey of trying to find somebody, hi Phoebe, that that you'll marry, that is marriage material. And unfortunately, a lot of people, most of the time before they get married, I'm kind of going off topic, but they date because they're bored, or because they're not necessarily dating with a purpose. And that is very dangerous, especially spiritually. But when you're dating with a purpose, and your husband finds you, or you find the right one to marry, there's so much joy in getting engaged and planning the wedding sometimes. And there's a lot of misconception that marriage will make you happy and having a man is going to make you happy. And that is not the case at all. And it's evident when women are going through trials and tribulations within their marriage, where something happens, or they're just kind of going through a rough patch, and they just can't seem to find the joy at that time during that season in their marriage, and it can spiral out of control. And so you've got to understand what joy is, and really, when it's done by our might, or when we're depending on somebody else for it, how toxic that can really be. We can't really depend on anybody else for our joy, especially our husbands. It's a lot of pressure on them. So the first, hi Rosa, the first point that I want to say, or number one, marriage is not designed to make you happy. And I've already talked about this a little bit, but the design of marriage is really to glorify God, number one, to create intimacy between you and a partner. And the third thing is also to procreate, to have a family. And that is the reason, that's what marriage was designed for. It's not designed for your happiness. It's really not. Your husband can bring you joy and he can bring you happiness, but when you look at it in that light, it can be very fickle. And the enemy can actually try and use that against you, because if you're constantly relying on your feelings of joy and happiness and delight, and your husband's not giving that to you at the time, there's going to be some problems. You know, there is a saying that's called happy wife, happy life, but the wife can't depend on her household for her happiness. You just can't. It's just too much responsibility. You can't depend on anybody for it. The second point is that it is not your husband's responsibility to bring you joy. If your husband comes home one day and he's having a bad day and he just, you know, he's lashing out, he's not really, you know, he's being short with people, and you think that's, you know, you're taking that personally because at the time you had a bad day too, and instead of thinking about himself, he really needs to think about your joy. That's a very selfish way to look at your relationship and to look at your state of mind. Your state of mind should never be dependent on your husband ever, because he goes through stuff too. Just like his joy cannot be dependent on whether you're happy or not. It really can't. Men are wired a little bit differently. It brings them a lot of satisfaction to, you know, keep his wife happy. I heard, I've read in books. But when it comes to the women, it is your responsibility to figure out what that joy is and how to maintain it, whether people around you are in a good attitude or not, or in a good mindset or not. You know, another thing that I like to look at as well is what happens if your husband passes away, or God forbid there's an affair or something happens, and he was your all. He was your, that was the one thing that made you happy. You've got to understand that there are consequences to putting that responsibility on him, especially when he's not around. So the point number 3 is your self-esteem is your responsibility, which means that and this is a good example. So I was getting dressed one day. We were going out on a date night, my husband and I. And I would make it a point to make myself look good, take a shower, do my makeup, straighten my hair sometimes, do my hair, put a comb through it, put some deodorant on, some perfume. And, you know, I took my time to, you know, get myself ready. We were going to the movies. And I had this shawl that was like super pretty. That was when shawls were just coming out. You got them at like Marshalls or TJ Maxx for like cheap. But it was really pretty nice summery shawl, and I loved wearing it because it was like a nice wraparound. I could wear it to the movies. And I love wearing it to the movies because, you know, sometimes it gets cold in there, so you just wrap yourself in it. But it was like a, not transparent, but it was like a lightweight shawl. It wasn't like a grandma shawl. It was super pretty. And I walk in the living room, and my husband goes, "Hey, you look like my abuela." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, you look like my abuela." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, I don't really like your shawl. Hi, Gobble. And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't like my shawl? This is amazing." Like, I thought it was the most amazing thing I've ever bought. It was super cute. You could wear it with anything, business casual, date night, whatever. And he was like, "No, I really don't like that." And I kind of was like heartbroken. Like, I mean, I took my time to get ready for you, and you don't like what I'm wearing? And I said that to him, and he was like, "Well, who cares? Like, I'm sure there are things that I wear that you don't like either." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's true." So he actually has these checkered plaid shorts that I was like, I never said anything, but I'm like, "Dude, you're not gonna wear those, are you?" So we all, you know, if I realize that I like the shawl and I like to wear it, and although I do wanna, you know, look nice for my husband, he's not really going to like everything that I'm wearing. And on top of that, he's not really going to compliment me every single time I take my time to look good. You know what I'm saying? So every single time that I would put on makeup or that I would be feeling myself, and I'm thinking looking good for my man, and I don't get a compliment, I feel like, man, he doesn't he doesn't love me. My self-esteem would drop a notch because I'm like, oh, my husband doesn't think I look good, and he's not even thinking about that. Like, he's thinking about something else, business or whatever. And so it's crucial that even though we take the time to look good, and if your husband compliments you, mine compliments me all the time, but when he doesn't, or when you're expecting him to, number one, he's not a mind reader. And you never know what he's really thinking. He could be thinking about something completely different. And maybe he does think that you look really pretty, but he's just not vocalizing it. But it doesn't matter. You cannot rely your self-esteem and your self-image on your husband. It might bring you joy that he says to you those things, that you look beautiful, and that you took your time to get ready for him, and all this stuff. But if he doesn't say anything, you should still be like, yeah, I look good. Your self-esteem and your self-image should be intact, even though your husband might not necessarily think so, or he just doesn't realize it at the moment. You know what I'm saying? So your joy can't come from that dependency of him complimenting you all the time or encouraging you all the time. It's not about you all the time, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but it's true. The fourth thing is, God should be the source of your joy, and here's why. Anytime that I'm thinking that my husband isn't really measuring up, or I used to, when we were in the beginning of our marriage, these are things that I constantly thought about, like, why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he doing that? And it was really because of the way that I grew up. So I already had a preconceived notion as to what my marriage is supposed to be like, because of how I saw marriages when I was growing up. So I assumed that my marriage was going to be like that too. And there were some factors in there that really did impact. Number one, obviously, your husband is never going to grow up the same way you did. Number two, we had a cultural difference too, because I'm Puerto Rican and he's white. And he also his priorities were a little bit different too when we first got married, because he had kids and I didn't. And so it's important for you to understand that in the beginning for me, I had to really figure out, okay, we might not be on the same page on some things, but I can't blame him for wherever my mindset is at. I can't say, well, my husband didn't do this, so that's why I didn't do that. Or, if you have a husband that, I don't know, maybe you like to go to church and he doesn't, or that's not the case for me, but or maybe your husband doesn't do something that you want him to do, and it causes you anguish, and it concerns you, because it's not the way that you would do it, right? I don't know if that makes any sense, but understand this: when you get to heaven, God is not going to say, why didn't you do this, this, and this? And you can't say, well, it was because my husband held me back. My husband didn't give me the confidence. It's because my husband didn't support me. That's a huge one. Oh, I didn't do it because my husband didn't support me. And I understand that in a marriage, it's a partnership. And in the Bible, the way that marriages are, it's God, husband, wife, and then children. And for me, I'm totally okay with that. Like, I'm at peace with that. At first, I struggled with it, but now it's very fulfilling. And you can't tell God, well, God, I couldn't do that because my husband isn't this, this, and that. And so I really had to come to terms with that and really figure out how to grow on my own without really looking at whatever my husband was doing for his self-growth. If that makes any sense. So my joy came from spending time with God. Whenever I would spend time with God, or in a church that was spirit-filled, and you just worship and you pray and you're in your word and your Bible and you're reading, there is so much joy that comes out of that. For me personally, that I could just stay in forever. Like when you're in the presence of God, or you can feel that the Holy Spirit is in the atmosphere. I can stay in that. That is very joyful for me. The second thing is quality time with my family. You know, quality time, being with them, having now we have dinners on Wednesdays, where we have a homemade dinner and we all sit together, no phones, um, and or quality time with my daughter, which to me is so close to my heart. I get to stay at home with her, and that means the world to me that I get to raise her. So, and quality time with my husband and my stepdaughter. So, those are things that bring joy. Is quality time with my parents, my brothers, anybody that is close to my heart. That is something that I value. That brings me joy. Quality time with myself too. This is you have different seasons in your life. So like if you have, toddlers like I do right now, and teenagers, and a husband, and a household, and a couple of businesses, it's interesting that you I have to set this I have to set the time aside for myself. Otherwise, I might lose it. So I set the time that I have for myself. Sometimes it used to be like getting my nails done and stuff like that, but when that stuff I realized was a liability and a huge waste of money, I actually started going out for coffee or dinner or lunch with a girlfriend once a week where we can talk about things that actually matter. And that brings a lot of joy to me. I not only get to kind of talk about some of the things that concern me or hurt me, but we can also talk about the things that are joy, filled with joy and God stuff. So it does bring me a sense of joy to just make sure I put a priority and put in quality time for myself once a week. The fourth thing, and not a lot of people talk about this, is helping somebody. When you take your eyes off of yourself and stop thinking about, oh well, I'm not joyful because he's not doing X, Y, and Z. But you go off and you help somebody that is in need. That actually really will bring you joy. Serving other people will bring you joy. It's true. And that was a habit that my husband and I had gotten into for a very long time, where our line of work required us to serve. And so that we already have that in our nature, where we can go help somebody, we will. And that does bring us a sense of joy. Others could be, a fish taco. My sense of sometimes I just need a fish taco, a good one. Food, or working out, or learning something new. And you've got to understand that at the end of the day, God should be your source of joy, because he is the beginning and the end. He is the same forever and ever. He is the same past, present, and future. And so he's the one that will give you the joy. And it's evident in John 15:11, where it says, I have told you these things so that my joy and delight may be in you, and that your joy may be made full and complete and overflowing. How sweet is that? Your joy is going to be, when you depend on your joy from God, it's going to be overflowing. I remember my husband would always ask me, if I ever got like kind of bitter. Sometimes I get bitter, like in a bad mood. He would ask me two things: Are you on your period? Or are you getting your period soon? PMS. Or, what are you reading and what are you listening to? And so two of the habits that I have carried myself when I used to train entrepreneurs, that I have that kind of bled into my life now, is that I'm always reading something that is building me up, uplifting me, or that I'm personally growing, and I'm always listening to an audio every single day on building my faith. And when I'm not doing those two things, you can see the joy kind of start to dissipate little by little. And it's really essential that you understand the pulses of you. And by that I mean, taking a pulse. Where are you at mentally? How is your joy? Are there things that you need to work on? Are you a little snippier than usual? Just things like that. Like, just do a mental check about, okay, how is my joy this week? How could I have done better, so that I don't have to rely on my husband for that source of joy. He can't give that to you. He can make you joyful at times, but If you want the permanent kind of joy, you've got to rely on God, and you also got to learn how to build yourself and grow yourself so that you can be unshakable. You are an unstoppable woman. Did you know that? You are. You just have to focus, and you've got to personally grow and get in your word and read your Bible, because that is where joy comes from. And that's where you learn how to battle, and that's where you learn how to pray, and that's where you learn how to encourage each other and talk to each other and think and talk. Literally, you can learn every single thing. I heard this woman say, somebody had asked this evangelist, what is your favorite marriage book? She's like, what marriage book would you recommend for me? And she was like, the Bible. Like, that's a stupid question. Why would you ask me that? Although, even though I did write a marriage book, Ricky Wifey, but it goes to show that, I mean, the thing is, just scripture is everywhere in that thing. But it goes to show that your joy cannot be dependent on anybody else, not your kids, not your parents, not your siblings, not your husband. It has to be dependent on you. You're the one that can, there's only two things you can control, is your actions and your attitude. You can't control anybody else. So guys, I hope you guys got something out of this today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know if there's any topics that you guys really want to talk about in the comments. Share. Go to LissetteCarter.com, sign up for the email subscription, and get your free e-course on balancing your way to success. There are lots of free goodies when you subscribe to LissetteCarter.com. Get your copy of Ricky Wifey today. There's lots of goodies in there. Wedding season is coming up. Make sure, I don't even know when wedding season is, but I think it's like every season because everybody's getting married all the time. Wedding season is coming up. Get your gift for them, the gift that keeps on giving, so that they can learn how to interact with their spouse, communicate, everything. So guys, thank you guys for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next week. Hit up Renew. Renew will be on Tuesday at 8 p.m. with Yaitari Rodriguez. For those of you that have been Christians for a long time and feel kind of stuck, or are ready for some meat instead of drinking that milk, for new Christians, you're ready to kind of move your faith forward. Go to Renew you'll see it live on Facebook with Yaitari and I. We're actually believing for a location in the area to go to bi-weekly to meet with a group of women. We do not want to do that. We don't want to host a small group online. So make sure you check it out, guys. I will see you next week.